please, can you fix this? That's what the customer said when they came in the barbershop. This is another episode of Cuts by Dre, New Styles Mobile Barber. And this is my Fix It episode of this low to mid temple fade. This gentleman came into the shop, had a haircut from another location, and he was like, man, they messed me up. You think you can fix this? So, in fixing this haircut, as you can see, it's not that bad. You know, the temple fade, what they attempted to give him, just a little uneven, just a little crooked, but they didn't take it up too high, so it was definitely a repairable haircut without a lot of hard work. So, what I like to do in my haircuts is I always like to start off at the bottom, you know, whatever type of fade I'm giving, just to clean up the bottom with a number one. And then I come back with my pre-shape up. My pre-shape up allows me to define that hairline, you know, while the hair is still dark, you know, before you get well into the cut. I do that because if you start to fade your client and do the hairline last, you'll have a tendency to take the hairline back, trying to get the line as sharp as possible because the hair isn't dark anymore. You've already taken off a lot of hair, so you can't see his original hairline. By doing a pre-shape up, you can see that original hairline a lot better. It prevents you from taking the hairline back, and it also allows you to keep it dark, you know, around the curvature of the hairline. That way you don't need to use, you know, any highlights if you don't choose to, because it still looks nice and dark and sharp. I'm using my half guard right now, flicking out at the wrist, trying to blend that in as smooth as possible. Then, as you can see, I put on my 1.5 guard, a much bigger guard that allows me to take out, debulk some of the thickness out, you know, as I move up towards the crown, towards the top of his head. This is, you know, my particular style of how I cut. You know, I think it's an effective style. I do go back and forth between guards a lot, and I am kind of a fast cutter. You know, I'm using my chest cam in this video, so please excuse me if it seems like I'm moving kind of fast or if the picture is, you know, moving in and out a lot. But this is the best and most effective ways that I can get my videos out. So right now, I'm still working this haircut out, man. I'm still doing some detail work, you know, on this low ball temple fade. This side right here was the side with the most damage. It wasn't, you know, cut as smooth. But at the same time, it wasn't that high at all. You know, whoever cut his head before, they didn't bring it up too high, so it was an easy fix. So as you can see, I got my 1.5 guard on my babeless, and I'm just trying to take out some of that bulk, bring down some of that darkness so that I can start to fade off, you know, where I would have liked to fade it. You know, I can bring it down and start that fade off there. So as you can see, I'm steady flicking the wrists out. Very important when you're cutting hair to always flick that wrist out. That minimizes putting more lines in the head that you actually have to fade out. I got my half guard on now. Still doing a lot of detail work. That's one thing about cutting hair. It's detail work. You have to learn the clipper that you use and use the same clipper for, you know, quite a long time so you can get yourself familiarized with how much hair that particular clipper cuts off. And clippers cut off different bulks of hair, different types of clippers. And depending on the texture of the hair, different types of clippers cut off different lengths of hair. So you really got to learn your clipper. The more you use one particular pair of clippers instead of swishing around, using a whole lot, you'll get familiarized with how much hair this clipper cuts off. When I got the lever in the up position, when I got it in the down position, when I got guards on it, when I'm cutting coarse hair, when I'm cutting kinky hair, it's very important to learn that because that will increase your speed and it will increase the quality and the smoothness of your haircuts. So all this right here is pretty much detailing the cut, trying to get this blend to look as natural as possible, as if he never went anywhere else. So right now, I like to do one side and then I like to turn to the other side. I never just work on one side and finish that side and then work on the other side. I always go back and forth because I believe that gives your eyes a rest. It lets you refocus on what you're doing. So I like to, hit one side up, spin it around, hit the other side up, give my eyes a little bit of rest so that I can refocus, so that I can, kind of visualize what I want and try to get the size the same. Some barbers like to cut one side at a time. And I think by doing that, you don't allow yourself to cut both sides the same as much, because one side is done. So then you got to try to match the other side with the side that you already completed. But if you go back and forth and you do both sides at the same time, it's a lot easier to match those two sides up. As you can see here now, I'm working on the back. The previous person that cut this hair, they brung it up a little bit higher than I would have liked in the back. I still don't want to go above that bone right there, the cervical bone in the back of his head. I want to kind of stay below that. But yeah, as you can see, the fade was already kind of close up to it. So this here is when you got to do, detail work, not only flicking the wrist, but using the corners of the clippers as well. And just using short burst is what I would call it. Short burst and outward flicking to try to get that fade in as small as areas you possibly can. Because I don't want to take that fade up high. He didn't want a high fade. He wanted a low fade. So I'm trying to make it as smooth as possible, as if no one ever cut it before, if no one ever messed his head up before. So as you can see, I'm working this out without a guard, clipper up and lever up and lever back. Each time I pull my hand away from the client's head, that's when I actually adjust the clipper. I adjust the lever. You can't see that well because I'm kind of a fast barber, but each time I go back, I adjust the clipper. Now I'm working on the actual bald part. I always do my balding at the end. I don't start off with the edges and put a hard bald line in. I think, as I told you in some of my other videos, I believe you get a much smoother fade when you do it that way. When you don't put that hard line in at the very beginning. I always do this at the last part. Well, not the very last part, but towards the end of the haircut. And I always flick out. That way I'm not creating a fresh new line. And I think that I think that makes the fade look a whole lot smoother, a whole lot more like a waterfall, like a smooth fade, like a gradual blend. So that's something to keep in mind when you're fading your customers out. I also don't like to use ball shavers. I think in some instances that breaks customers out. And I've been in the game for over 30 years, and I've seen some pretty bad necklines broken out from shaving too close in the back of the head. So I stay away from them. I have another pair of edges that I adjusted that are pretty sharp, and I always use them to clean up the bottom to just get that bald fade just a little bit balder, just a little bit sharper. Now, towards the end of the cut, I like to go over and I do my hairline again. Of course, in the very beginning, I did that pre-shape up. Now I'm doing my final shape up. Still using the same guideline from the pre-shape up. Not pushing their hair back, not pushing their hairline back, because I gave myself a visual early in the cut. I think that's very important. I think that's a useful technique to use to keep that natural hairline as sharp as possible. I notice a lot of cuts that I see on YouTube, especially right here, when they go around the ear, they bring it up real high. It looks real good when it's fresh, but hair starts to grow back immediately. The very next day, hair is growing back. And when that hair starts to grow back and you've taken that line up too high, it's not going to look good. You're actually going to have two hairlines, the fresh one and the one that's growing back. You know, so it's not really going to look all that good. So I definitely encourage a lot of you guys out there to try this technique out, the pre-hairline in the beginning and then following it at the end. And you'll notice you won't need to use a lot of highlights. You know, you won't have to put a lot of dyes in your hair or the spray dyes to try to bring that hairline out because it'll already be kind of dark. And that darkness is kind of what you're looking for. That's what you're aiming for when you spray highlights in your hair. It makes it darker so you can see the hairline. It's more defined. So by doing that pre-shape up and leaving the hairline dark from the very beginning, actually a natural darkness instead of a sprayed on darkness, you don't have to use the highlights and the cut looks a lot better, not just when you walk out of the barbershop, but days later, it will still look nice and sharp and fresh, especially if you're not taking the hairline back. So, this fix-it job is almost finished. We're working towards the end. Right here is what I call my powder line, my powder shape up. And many people might be like, well, why do you do this? Well, the advantages of doing a powder shape up opposed to doing the highlights and the sprays, when you put this powder on your hair, on your hairline, as you see I'm doing, you can't see it good with the camera, but it actually allows you to see a lot of hair on your forehead, along the sides of the face. That white powder actually brings out and makes that hair stand up. Hair that you didn't cut, hair that you thought you might have cut, but you actually didn't cut it. That powder allows you to see it, and once you try it out, you'll notice all of the hair that's on the forehead that you thought was cut that actually wasn't cut. So what I do this powder line, and what it does, it gives a little effect where you can actually see the line better, but it also makes all those hairs stand up that you didn't cut so that you can come back over like I'm doing now and just clean that forehead up and get all those loose hairs off. Not even loose hairs, but hairs that you just didn't see because you just couldn't see them, because a lot of hairs are the same color as your skin. You know, a lot of those fine baby hairs in the front, and you just can't see them. So what that powder line does, not only does it give you an effect of a sharper hairline and lets you see if your hairline is straight or not. You can make adjustments. It wipes right off. It's nothing permanent, but you can actually see real good where the hairline is at. You can make adjustments from there to either straighten it a little more or leave it how it is. Plus get all of those hairs off your forehead that you couldn't see. So with that in mind, this haircut is about finished. This is the fix-up job. Customer came in, asked me could I fix it. You know, I said I believe I can. Give him a little bit of oil sheen, and there you have it. Cuts by Dre, New Styles Mobile Barber, and this is the finished product. If you like what you see, like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and catch me in my next video.